Deliberate Leaders. I am your host, Allison Dunn, founder of the Deliberate Leaders podcast, dedicated to helping leaders build strong, thriving businesses. Each episode, we feature inspiring interviews to help you on your leadership journey. And today, you're in for a real treat. I have as my guest, Ryan Blair. He is known as the Goals Guy, #1 best-selling author of Everything Counts. Gary has cracked the code on what it takes to get 10 years worth of results in 100 days. He accepts full responsibility for inspiring people to do insane things like climb Mount Everest, run their first triathlon, launch their own business, and say adios to their comfort zone. Today, he will be sharing some powerful ideas for achieving your goals, inspiring excellence, and creating radical results fast. Gary, thank you so much for joining me here today.
I am so happy to be here with you. So thanks for having me. And by the way, I know we spoke about this before, but I've always loved the name of your business. The deliberate part is powerful, and it sends a really strong message. So congrats on choosing that.
Thank you so much. I should share here, just as an upfront, I am someone who has done the 100-day challenge that we're about to talk about in this episode a little bit. And I first enrolled in the challenge in September of 2019. So I'm 500 days or 550 days in at this point. I'm super excited to share this interview and share the concepts behind the 100-day challenge and what that means. But first, I'm going to kick this off. Could you share your #1 leadership tip for our Deliberate Leader listeners?
Oh, yeah, got a bunch, but I'll tell you what, I'm a big believer in terms of time. And as we know, it's an unrecoverable asset. But even more importantly, the beautiful part about time is it's democratic, meaning that each one of us has the exact same amount of time, doesn't matter who it is. All right, that being said, let's put a little meat on the bones. There's 525,600 minutes in a year. That's just a matter of fact. And I believe that everyone should focus in on, if you want to talk about being deliberate, about really paying attention to how to utilize your time. Well, if you make $1 per minute, you will generate in your business or put in your pocket $525,600 per year. If you want to make $1 million, that means your time is worth $1.92. My advice to everybody is to take last year's income, divide it into 525,600, and that will tell you exactly to the penny what your time is worth per minute. And the reason, the importance of this is that once you have a number associated with it, then you start to realize that, you know what, there's no room for procrastination, for indecision, for apathy, for anything that does not move the needle forward. And that's why I believe in having a really high, just a strong relationship with time and money, quite frankly.
That's awesome. It's an exercise that I bring my clients through, and I think it's very insightful. Once you have that clarity on the value of your time, it really does change how you spend it and what you think about putting into your day, like what you invest in, right? Because your time is an investment, hands down.
Yeah, listen, we're all playing a high stakes game of one and done. So yeah, it's important to keep in touch with it.
Awesome. So can you tell us, you are the goals guy, you're the, world's only goals guy, right? How did you come up with that?
Well, self-ordained. That was, it was one of those things where I knew I was going to pick my lane and I needed some kind of a unique identifier. And the legitimate story is this: Tim Allen was on TV. He was Tim the Tool Man. Some are going to remember, some are not. And I thought, that was kind of cool. And then I reflected on it. And I'm like, at the time, Michael Jackson, the King of Pop, James Brown, and you start to go through the Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, and so forth. And I'm like, these were titles that gave these people a presence. It helped them build their brand. And I wanted something really unique. So I hung my shingle, if you will, on the Goals Guy.
I think it's very appropriate, especially when it's associated with the challenge, because it's all about setting goals. one of the things that you talk about a lot is the performance gap. And so I would like for you to explain what that means and your take on that for listeners.
You got it. Well, here's the biggest gap that exists in people's lives really is the gap between what they say they're going to do and what they actually do. So let's get that out of the way first. But here, I mean, bottom line is somebody, again, let's say they want to generate $1 million in revenue. And they want to do that in the first quarter or second quarter of the year. It really doesn't matter. And they come up short. Obviously, 675,000 or whatever the number is, there's going to be a gap. It's just the way that it goes. So my objective, more than anything else, I call it closing speed. And what can you do to close that gap as quickly as possible, to compress time and to accelerate that outcome? But fundamentally, listen, there's always going to be some kind of a gap that exists in your life in a variety of areas. Health, wealth, relationship, number of clients, gross net income, and all that type of stuff. That'll always exist. And the beautiful part about it is you can use the concept of closing that gap, of accelerating that process, if you will. And that's really what's baked into the 100-day challenge, really.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the 100-day challenge. Why did you create it? And can you just give a little bit of background of like what's involved in a 100-day challenge? Because I love the even number of 100. There's so many challenges out there. So share yours.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of challenges out there. And I was probably, in all honesty, I was probably the first, because we're going back 10, 12, 15 years at this point in time when I originally came up with the idea. Okay, so I created this really as kind of an alpha male for myself, for my clients, for the guys that I worked with and so forth. And I wanted to kind of reframe the conversation as it related to goals. My thinking is this. I believe that we've been lied to throughout our entire lives, that we have to accept, small cost of living allowances, that growth happens incrementally, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Same thing, red, yellow, orange, if you're taking karate or what have you. And I came to realize that, my life really didn't work that way, that I was able to, by working smarter, to create leaps and realize that there are a series of different shortcuts. Just to give you an example, because sometimes people get the hair on the back of their neck goes up when you talk about shortcuts, but that's really what the 100-day challenge is all about. It is a program that literally helps you to speed things up, to accelerate. So to give a couple of examples, if you were to go to Disney, you have an opportunity to buy what's called a speed pass. That allows you to jump over the line, if you will, and rather than wait for maybe 3 hours, you could get online in 15 minutes. You're basically on the line. We pay for that luxury, if you will. Where else do we see that? Well, you drive your car down the highway. We have toll lanes, if you will. You can pay a little bit and you scoot on through. And what I've come to realize is that there are certain things that you can do in life in order to compress time. And I incorporated all those into the 100-day challenge to get people to radically think differently about how they can grow, how they can mature, how they could solve problems and do a whole host of different things. And I've been fortunate enough to see some people turn some really what they would consider to be impossible goals into some extraordinary successes in a very short period of time. But if you don't mind, just to give you a little caveat, what helped along this way was I was very much involved in a number of programs that everyone sees on TV. Just behind the scenes, I don't even know if you and I have ever even discussed this, but we've seen Extreme Home Makeover. So Extreme Home Makeover I didn't come up with the concept, but I was a consultant on the program. And the idea being is it normally takes, a small house, maybe 120, 150 days to complete. A large mansion, our house that we built in Florida, it took us 2.5 years to build that. Okay, well, what these guys were doing is they were building a move-in ready house in 7 days. You talk about compressing time. That forced people to radically rethink what's possible. I also work with The Biggest Loser, and you had people that were 100, 200 pounds overweight, and literally within 16 weeks, they were running marathons and losing a tremendous amount of weight. And the latest one I've been involved with is Dancing with the Stars, where you can take people who've never danced before in their lives. And guess what? At the end of one season, which is about 100 days, you couldn't tell the difference between the professional and the amateur who just started a few weeks before. And we see this happen in military boot camp. We see this happen in a variety of different ways. And I wanted to get people to understand that you need to reframe your belief about growth and what's possible, and that you could truly move mountains and achieve some significant milestones in an accelerated time frame. It's been proven. I know it's possible.
One of the things that you tout is that you can basically compress time by, achieving in 100 days what most people take 10 years to achieve. One of the things that I most appreciate about the 100-day challenge is that it is delivered daily in a way that is incredibly inspirational. And in addition to that, it has me gut check on the actions I've taken or not taken on a daily basis. And so it's like a 1-2 that kind of keeps you in sync. And it's there on Saturday and it's there on Sunday, day after day for 100 days. And then I'm an alumni, so I just reset that every 100 days. I am really passionate about the program overall, and to be able to say that, I've done it repeatedly, but I also bought it for my son, who is a young adult early in his career. So I don't know who you created it for, but who is the right person that should consider enrolling in a 100-day challenge?
Good question. And I did not know that you bought it for your son. So that's great. We have another conversation on that. Okay. I created it for anybody who wanted to make change in their life. However, and this is the big however, it helps tremendously if you already bring to the table a certain set of skills. Let me set this up this way. My primary client that I work with now, I'm a consultant with the Department of Defense, where I work with Special Forces. And the question that I constantly ask, and I focus on, it is truly the thing that I think about every day. How do you help the best get better? How do you help people who are already disciplined, already focused, already committed, already, mission focused and so forth? How do you help them get better? And it's not a whole host of things, large things. It's small things. It's looking for opportunities that they haven't considered before and so forth. So who's going to benefit the most from the 100-day challenge? Somebody who already has the skills of a mature, responsible adult. You're focused, you're disciplined, you know what needs to be done. You just want to take your performance to another level, and you're looking for some additional insights, some mental doors to be opened. And I promise you, as you're well aware, that comes in spades. So that's probably the answer.
Fantastic. So for listeners who might be interested in learning a little bit more, I am going to include a link directly to it right here in the show notes. Is there a deadline? What type of rhythm do you run this on, Gary? Just so that people keep this in mind.
When I first started the program, the history of it, you asked me before how I started it. I launched it on September 22nd. And for anybody who has a business, I think anybody will appreciate this. I wanted to do something unique. One, I wanted to have my own unique identifier with the goals guy. I wanted to have something that was really different. I love the annual marketing calendar. And for anybody who markets, and I'm quite confident that's who your audience is, there are certain evergreen events that are going to happen every single year. It starts off with New Year's, then it progresses into Groundhog's Day. You've got Valentine's Day, Martin Luther King Day, and so forth. And it runs the gamut. And they're predictable dates in the calendar. What I wanted to do is I wanted to have a unique, predictable date in the calendar that I could own. So September 22nd was the launch date. Why? Well, outside of a leap year, it happens every year. It begins the last 100-day countdown of the year. And the messaging on that was all about finishing strong. I ran it that way for the first few years. And then we expanded the window and decided to do 4 launches, as you know. So beginning of January, beginning of April for the second quarter, beginning of July, 3rd, and obviously the last being that last 100 days, September 22nd. And it's been a winning strategy. It's really worked out well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you caught me on that finish the year strong platform originally on the first time.
Well, the great part about it, though, if you're going to market, themes are great. And the one thing I learned about marketing is that you want to speak to the conversation that's taking place in the customer's mind.
Right.
And in my case, I get a lot of free publicity. And what I mean by that is, at the beginning of the year, January 1, everyone's already talking about New Year planning, New Year's resolutions, what have you. Going into April 1st, there's not a boardroom or a sales manager, anybody who's not having a conversation about the second quarter. How did we do in the first? What corrective actions need to take? Same thing going on July 1st and the 3rd, and so forth. So I literally tap into the conversation that's already taking place and give them an opportunity to take whatever is on your agenda, your specific goals, and let's use this time frame to maximize that. And it's been a winner. It's been a win-win.
Well, thank you so much. It's been incredibly impactful for me in keeping it on the forefront of everything that I'm working with my clients too. So I appreciate that, Gary. What are you working on these days? Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm actually working on a youth program. I want to build the largest community of self-reliant young men and women. It's driven by one question. What are the 30 things that every young man and woman needs to master by the time they're 18 years of age? And that goes from financial management, self-reliance, and a whole host of things. And I'm excited about it. It's gonna fall under the brand name Got Goals. I happen to own that trademark, and it'll be the Got Goals Challenge. So I'm pretty excited about it. We'll be launching it pretty soon.
Awesome. I'm excited to see what that looks like. We're coming to the end of our interview, but I definitely want to ask you, can you leave one actionable idea that we can use immediately to get results from?
Okay. The theme of the program, as you know, is start fast, finish strong.
Mm-hmm.
And there's to connect that with the book that I wrote, Everything Counts, as you had mentioned. On the cover of the book, there's an exclamation mark. And I don't know if we've had this conversation, but I love this approach to life, because not only am I talking about how do you achieve your goals, I'm talking about how do you win with honor? How do you win in the spirit of excellence? And to me, you've got, that has to be at the forefront. Okay. That being said, I want you to look at grammar, a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. And a period essentially is about how 80% of the world's sentences and conversations go about on a day-to-day basis. Nothing spectacular. They don't draw your attention. It's an average, meat and potato type thing. Then you have the question mark. The question mark, essentially, if you go back, the Latin derivative, it was the interrogation mark, is what it was called. I don't know where or how it was changed, but it was called initially the interrogation mark. Why were you late? Why didn't you show up on time? Why didn't you, clean the bathroom? Whatever it was. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. I've always felt that the last thing anyone ever wants to have after their name or their company or anything is a question mark. You don't want to leave a question mark in people's minds about your character. That leaves us with the exclamation mark, which is just a small percentage of sentences, but in this case, it's life in general. To me, the exclamation mark is a symbol of excellence. And my thinking is, how do you put an exclamation mark at the beginning and the end, bookmark every single activity? And you have to look at it this way, that when you think about finishing strong, that this is not just the end of the year. The fact is, our conversation right now is going to come to an end, but you have every task, every email, every text message, every conversation, every meeting, every day, week, quarter, month, or year is going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Therefore, you want to start it fast. You want to set some kind of a pace. You put an exclamation mark, a stake in the ground. Then, how do you end it? So the best example I could give you, and I think everybody will love this, think about Kramer from Seinfeld. When Seinfeld, at the beginning, they were on air for about 10, 11 years. The first 5 years, he focused in on his entrance into the room. So he always had some crazy, thing that he had done, and everyone looked forward to it. And it came to where Michael Richards came to a point in time. I remember listening to an interview. It's like, I need to give this character a little bit more depth. And then he focused in on his exit. So the second half of the entire show, essentially he did that. And he focused on how do you exit with an exclamation, if you will, with a little pizzazz. And the thing I would say to everybody is, how do you live your life with a series of exclamation marks? And how do you use them as symbols of excellence, as stakes in the ground, as mile markers, as opportunities to send a message whoever it is you happen to be working with. And that's a great way with which to be able to look at it, really is. So
I love that. Exclamation point. So that's the actionable item that listeners can take today. And hopefully I will see you inside of the 100-day challenge also. Gary, thank you so much for your time today. It's so great to catch up with you and hear your voice and be part of this conversation.
I am one of your biggest fans. So thanks for having me on. Love what you're doing, and I'm glad to be part of it. So again, thanks for having me.
Thank you.